Iron Man is the MCU's greatest hero, but also possibly its worst villain. A running joke is how Tony seems to be responsible for a lot of villains, and this new theory about Black Widow's Taskmaster might point to Tony being responsible for creating one last bad guy. Although we know the main villain of Black Widow's solo movie is Taskmaster, there's still so much we don't know about his true identity. Where did he come from, and how is he able to copy the fighting styles of Earth's mightiest heroes? Well, a new theory suggests it's all Iron Man's fault, which, come on, at this point, wouldn't be that surprising, right? Let me explain. Yeah, we all miss Tony Stark, and there's no denying the positive impact he's left on the world. But if you actually map out his entire MCU story, you'll find a common theme is Tony's arrogance, hubris, or inconsiderate nature creating some of the worst MCU villains we've seen. Some of them happened before he became a hero, like being cocky and arrogant enough to really frustrate Obadiah Stane to the point where Stane got him kidnapped by terrorists, or pulling a prank on Aldrich Killian that saw Killian alone on a roof and then for some reason devote his whole life to proper skincare and vengeance. And that's all understandable to an extent. Tony was a different person back then. Instead of being a genius billionaire playboy philanthropist, he was just the first three things. But he's also probably the Avenger who's created the most villains since becoming a hero. His biggest failure is probably Ultron, which in Tony's attempt to protect the Earth developed a psychopathic rogue AI system that nearly destroyed the planet. But there are more examples too. After the Battle of New York, Tony created damage control to clean up the city, which I'm sure started with good intentions. But he didn't think about how that would affect people like Adrian Toomes and force him into a life of crime. And then Spider-Man Far From Home revealed Quentin Beck, and a whole flock of disgruntled Stark employees were mad at Tony and turned evil. Just saying, he doesn't have a great track record. So would it really be that surprising if he created one last villain? You know, like one more for old time's sake. So that brings us to Taskmaster, the mysterious villain that will face off against Black Widow in her upcoming prequel movie. In the comics, Taskmaster has the ability to mimic his opponent's fighting techniques, and it looks like the Black Widow movie is more or less following that. So how is the villain able to do this? Does he just have a photographic memory, or is it something tech-related? Well, if we follow the trend of a lot of villains in the MCU, perhaps the answer traces all the way back to Iron Man again. Big shocker, right? But how did this happen? Well, for that, let's go back to Captain America's Civil War. I know, it's a little traumatic thinking about Earth's mightiest heroes fighting each other. It's why I can't go near airports anymore. But let's revisit the ending that saw the brutal fistfight between Iron Man and Captain America. There's one scene that's really important here. As Captain America goes all Brooklyn on Tony's butt, Tony asks Friday to analyze Cap's fighting moves to come up with a counterattack. Once the system is done analyzing, Iron Man is able to fight back. Now, this could have just been a throwaway line since it's something we haven't seen again, but what if there's more to it than that? What if Tony left behind a bit of his broken suit or even his broken mask when he left, and someone else picked it up and then altered it so they could copy other people's fighting abilities? Sure, that might sound a little crazy, but consider this. The ending of Civil War takes place in Siberia, which is a location we know is going to be important and featured in Black Widow, so there's at least a connection there, and anyone could have found a piece of Iron Man's tech. The place was packed with frozen super soldiers. Zemo said he took care of them all, but what if he missed one? What if one survived and escaped and came across the technology and now he's a super soldier who can mimic the other Avengers? In the Black Widow trailer, eagle-eyed fans spotted a logo for AIM, Killian's company in Iron Man 3. What if they're responsible for getting Tony's armor and using it for evil purposes? What if a janitor who desperately was in the need for some hazard pay was cleaning up the mess and found the tech? All I'm saying is that it's a possibility because Tony probably wasn't in the best mindset to cover his tracks at the end of the movie. And speaking of Tony, it's heavily rumored that Robert Downey Jr. will have a small cameo in the film. At first, the news didn't make a lot of sense. It felt like just a way to bring back Tony Stark after Endgame to get fans excited. But what if there's a legitimate story reason for it? If Tony is responsible for Taskmaster, then his inclusion in the movie feels important rather than just a fun cameo. So what if it turns out Tony is responsible for another villain? We'd have 2 movies in a row that had someone blame Iron Man for something after his passing. Which begs the question of what other villains will show up with a serious Iron Man grudge. What, will Harley Keener show up in the Hawkeye TV show because he stole valuable tech at Tony's funeral or something? Who knows? And yeah, I know this is being hard on Tony and not talking about all the good he did, but come on, man, stop creating bad guys. Well, if Tony is responsible for Taskmaster, then I'm not too worried. Black Widow is more than capable of handling it herself, and I look forward to seeing Black Widow versus basically the entire Avengers team. Do you think Tony could be responsible for Taskmaster? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for more awesome MCU content. Thanks for watching CBR. See you next time.